Hi, I'm Jadam-san, and let's talk the most important mechanic in EU5, your parliament. Every 5 years, you have the option to call your country's parliament. If you click on it, you can choose its location. What is important about this is that if you pick it in your capital, you progress your country towards centralisation, and if you pick it somewhere else, you progress your country towards decentralisation. Once you've chosen your location for the parliament, it will give you a bunch of options for really important buffs for your nation. These are put forward by your estates. For example, conducting a census is done by your Crown estate, which gives you 0.5% population growth for 6 months whilst your issue is being debated, and if it passes, you get 7 stability. Now, this is a good example for a feature that I'll mention later, but this issue, you're not always going to get the rewards just because it passes. So, for example, you get that population growth through the debating stage, and it doesn't go away if you just lose the debate. So you can pick this issue and not put any effort into passing it, as long as you're happy to take the stability hit, because you'll still take the population growth. Then you also have issues put forward by your burghers, your people, your clergy, and if you have other estates such as the dhimmi or your tribes, they will put forward stuff too. And they're a bit self-explanatory. For example, expanding your gravel road gives you a reduction on your gravel road costs and its time to build. Increasing your ties to your neighbours gives you diplomats, increased relation with your neighbours, and diplomatic reputation. Sponsoring a cathedral gives you a half-price cathedral. Promoting urbanisation, which is very strong by the way, upgrades one of your rural locations to a town and gives you pop promotion speed. And you can check the rest out for yourselves. But you're going to have, throughout your game, a lot of different issues that come up. And these change all the time. For example, our people's issue at the moment is expanding our officer list, which will give us a peasant character, whereas they often try to introduce expansion to your RGOs, such as your hunting or your gathering operations, and these are especially strong. So what's this little additive multiplier on the right here? Well, your parliament is out of 100% support. You need to get above 50% for the issue to pass. It's not a chance. So if you get 50.01%, your issue will pass. But likewise, if you get 49%, your issue will fail, and you will take the debuff. Now, by just selecting a parliament issue, you increase your cost of court significantly for the 6 months that your parliament is going. So beware, if you're massively pushing your legitimacy at that time, it will cost you an arm and a leg. So you could think about delaying this, but I don't really do that. By picking this issue, you can see we've got a base 48% parliament support because of how strong our nobles are. The increase you have to your support when you choose one of your estate's offers is based on their relative power. So for example, we got 37% from our nobles there because they've got 37% power. So often throughout your EU5 games, you're going to have big nobility pressure and big power behind them. So you can utilize that in your parliament to help them pass through reforms they want. And they may not be the best reforms, but what's important about your parliament are these requests you can do here. You can spend 50% of your support. For example, if we grant this privilege to the nobles, we jump up to 89% support. Now we can spend 50% of our support on requesting additional taxes, which gives us 25% maximum tax for a year. Fabricating a conquest CB on anyone we want. This is especially important as you can't fabricate it for a spy network in EU5. Boosting your levies by 25% for 3 years, or changing a law for free. I say free, obviously you're spending the 50% support, but without touching your stability, and especially if this is something that you're struggling with in your games. What's also really important to know is that if you do use one of these requests and your bill fails in your parliament, that isn't rescinded. You get that request buff regardless. So you can just choose. For example, if you've got a really strong nobility, what the nobility proposes, use their high support to pass a parliament request and then just let the bill fail. Because these requests are often and usually much stronger than the bills themselves. Another strong thing to do through the Parliament mechanic is look at these agendas here. Now, giving one of these increases your parliament support, as you saw earlier, but they can give you some really important buffs just for reducing your estate's loyalty and their satisfaction that regenerates as the game goes. For example, this increased opinion here, we get 25% opinion. We get 25 opinion of Wurzburg, and all it costs is just a little bit of satisfaction. As you can see, we've used these agendas to push back up to 54% support, even though we've already done a Parliament request. And you can do a second request in the space of one Parliament. So we could use this to fabricate a CB on Portugal, say, in our Castile game, and let the bill fail, and we'd still get both of these requests as the buffs for the time limit that we've requested them for. You could also get relevant events that pop up throughout your Parliament. For example, this one, military support in Alcantara, gives us 5% support in courts if we want it, or we can trade that for 2.5 army tradition. These events are very useful for getting a little bit closer to the line. For example, for your 48%, you're looking to just get over that 50% mark. But this can go the opposite way too. So for example, in this event, we're losing 5% support and we have no option to fight that. But as you can see here, because we had over 50% support, our Parliament has passed the bill, which gives us a big buff for our nation. Your Parliament type is also something you can change in EU5. We start as Castile with an estate Parliament, which allows our clergy and our burghers in, but you can change this at the cost of 50 legitimacy. You can go to an assembly, a council, or just take out your Parliament entirely, which is something I wouldn't recommend because it is so strong. So thank you for watching. Do let us know if this helped. It's a really strong mechanic that you need to use in your EU5 games, but it's not the simplest one to understand. For example, I was still trying to push my base support in my Parliament up to 100% throughout all of my games until recently. And only a few days ago, I learned that it only needed to be 50%. This game is quite hard, so we're still learning it together. So if you made any mistakes or you've got any further tips for people, please put them in the comments and we can all upskill together. Have a lovely day.